Director Bays. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to go back to calling roll. Sorry for the audio issues. Commissioners, when I call your name, please indicate present if you're present. Commissioner Corniatis.
Here.
Commissioner Morancic.
Present.
Commissioner George, I am here. Commissioner Weigel
Here.
and Commissioner Parati.
Present. And we have a quorum and we can proceed. Next up, we have the adoption of tonight's agenda, which includes a consent agenda. On the consent agenda are two items: the approval of the April 17 minutes and a decision to protest an APCA license for Colony Liquors located at 4901 Georgia Avenue. Are there any objections from any of the commissioners to any of the items on the consent agenda? Are there any objections from any commissioners or any proposed changes to the agenda overall as passed around and circulated by Secretary Amon?
We need to add, this is Commissioner Corniotis, we need to add approval of Q2's quarterly financial report to our consent agenda.
And do you have a copy of that, Treasurer Corniotis, that you could send to us or put on the screen when it's your turn to give the report?
Yes, sir, but yes, I do.
Okay, so why don't we, rather than put that on the consent agenda, why don't we vote on that separately after you've given your report, if that's okay?
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Any other proposed changes or objections from any commissioners? Hearing none, the agenda, including the consent agenda, is adopted. Next up, we have the Treasurer's report from Treasurer Corniotis. Treasurer, how's our finances?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
One other thing, just looking at the agenda, on top of approval of the agenda, I think you will want to motion to suspend
Thank
the
you,
rules.
yes. Can I also ask for unanimous consent from commissioners to suspend standing rules E6 and E7 so that we can move our votes until the end of the meeting and also restrict the time that commissioners are able to speak so that we can keep on target with our time schedule? Hearing no objections, the rule is suspended by unanimous consent for tonight's meeting. Okay, back to you, Treasurer Corniotis. Tell us about our finances.
Can you move me down until I get there in person, please?
Sure, we can push you off for a little bit, Treasurer.
Thank you.
Sure. Next, then we will turn to Acting Director Sharon Kirschbaum, who is here tonight as a representative of Mayor Bowser's cabinet to talk about the proposed budget for next year. So, Director Kirschbaum.
This one.
Sorry, let me just pull up your
Testing to make sure you
presentation.
can hear me. Excellent. Thank you so much, 4D. I am really happy to be here tonight. I have limited time and I was going to do a quick overview on the mayor's proposed budget. And then I'm happy to answer questions and talk more deeply about issues in that, but also particularly on DDOT's related to DDOT's budgets. And we have a deck and I'm not sure if someone can pull that up.
I'm pulling
Okay,
it up as we
perfect.
speak. Sorry.
I just also, for those who are following in terms of where we are in the budget cycle, so the mayor had proposed her budget. Right now it is with council. So there's been committee markups. There was a council of a whole markup. Ultimately, any changes that are happening now will not be reflected in this deck. I'm really just sharing what the mayor's proposals were. And then we'll ultimately get a markup from council and a vote from council. And then we will have a final budget for fiscal year 25. And that starts October 1st. All right, if you want to switch to the next slide. I know there's been a lot of talk about the challenging fiscal situation that we're in, but I think it's really important to underscore that the state of the district is strong. Crime has been going down. We have been reached #1 as a city for tech careers. We've been doing great in terms of this conversion from office to residential, particularly downtown. Our AAA bond rating is solid, and we are a leading city for women-owned businesses, and we have a number of key industries that continue to grow. Next slide, please. All that said, there have been a number of converging situations that have made the budget situation particularly challenging. Thank you for making that bigger. And there's a lot of text on these. We can share the deck if people want to take a better look at it. But so when the budget formulation process was coming forward in the fall, we were facing a number of increasing costs. And some of these are fixed costs in ways we can't avoid. WMATA had the fiscal cliff. So they came to us with open arms saying, please, we need you to increase your contribution. Labor agreement costs escalated, retirement costs, costs to maintain our schools, our Medicaid match, and then the other elements of fixed costs, utilities, leasing, security costs, all were going up. At the same time, a number of our massive federal funds that we had been receiving, ARPA funds, recovery funds, were all winding down. So $3.3 billion that we had been using to maintain a lot of services are going away at the end of 24. And then we were also faced with some slowed revenue projections, including particularly related to tax revenues. So 6% we've been seeing since 2010. And that's been, it's been wonderful. And we've been able to make great investments. It looks like from 2024 through 2028, it's going to be closer to 2%. So put all of those in, those puts and takes in, we were facing a $4 billion gap. And what that means is that the district had to take a hard look at the priorities and make some hard decisions. If you want to turn to the next slide. In terms of how the framework that was used to make those prioritization decisions, key was to maintain and enhance core services and to prioritize programs that we could show were successful and advanced equity. But then we had to reset spending to align with the resources that we had. And we wanted to do all of those resets and some hard cuts at the same time that we continue to make investments that we know are going to be key for future growth, public safety, education, and downtown in particular. Next slide. You can keep going, downtown, public safety, and education. All right. I wish people could see these. I'm not going to read over them, but there were significant investments that will be made in public safety, including 40 new community safety officers and civilian positions added to MPD, 3.4 million to add some new crime fighting technology, 700 million to serve youth through a number of diversion programs. So as you can see, it's a big investment. I'm going to keep moving though. In the interest of time, downtown. The good news that we still will have our core in terms of Capital One Arena, but we're making so many other investments in terms of transforming how, when we have empty offices, how we can turn these into residential communities. We have a $500+ million fund, a Chinatown revitalization fund that will help both sports arena, but also in the vicinity, other streetscape improvements. We plan to activate public space, open up some pedestrian plazas. It's going to be really exciting. And then a number of other resources to attract and retain businesses and activate other plazas for pedestrian and residential use. In terms of DDOT's investments, we have a new promenade coming in terms of decking over Connecticut Avenue. We are adding some closures around Gallery Place that will be pedestrianized. And then we're continuing to add new bike stations to help encourage people, both bike stations and priority bus lines to help encourage people to use other ways to get into town. All right, next slide. We are also making very significant contributions and investments to supporting education, $349 million in additional funding for DC public schools and charter schools. And that's really a 12% increase in the uniform, the student funding formula, 4.8 million to continue high impact tutoring. There's increases and there's a special education hub, just equipment within the school auditoriums. There's just a number of others on this list that I will let folks look through and not read through fully. The other key area that there's new investments in is housing and economic development. $100+ million to modernize public housing units that the Housing Authority manages, and then other resources to help first-time home buyers, to help for low-income homeowners to make upgrades, and a number of these that are also listed, and I will not read through fully. Another area of big investments include recreation and libraries. There's $129 million for modernizing and constructing recreation and community centers, $87 million towards modernizing and renovating our public libraries. And actually that includes money specifically for the Shepherd Park and Thornton Library, the $25 million. There's also funds for enhanced security within our libraries. And we're doing a state of good repair blitz, targeted improvements within our DPR facilities, playgrounds, fields and courts, and so forth. We're continuing to make investments in transportation and the environment. $406 million for our street, sidewalks, and alley state of good repair. That helps us, and these are capital budget improvements, so these are over the 6-year capital budget. There are resources to clean up the Anacostia River. We are expanding capital bike share, so not only are we adding new docking stations and able to maintain our fleet, but we have new operating and maintenance costs. I know there was a resolution from this ANC to help improve, I think, the restacking of our bike stations. So we have some new money within DDOT to help make that happen. As the system's grown, we have not been able to keep up with the maintenance costs, but we're having a new infusion of resources to help with that. We're continuing the curbside composting program. It's recently been a pilot, but I know they're opening it up for new households that are interested in participating. And there's resources to help with some flood proofing upgrades. We are also we have new streetery guidelines coming through, and we have new money to help do design support and technical assistance. Our streeteries right now have been operating under kind of the original emergency guidelines, and there's a lot of improvement needed across the board. So these new guidelines will be significant, and I think will really improve, I think, the visual and access for all. So we're excited about that. And then, as folks know, we are winding down the circulator. That was one of the hard cuts that was needed. So we have some resources in this year to help with that. We're working very closely with WMATA to see how they can absorb most of those routes. We know people depended on circulator, and it was a really hard decision to make, but ultimately the ridership has not bounced back. We were heavily subsidizing every ride. It was almost $18 per ride. It just didn't make sense. If this was your household budget, I think you would agree that there's ways that you need to make cuts. The good news is we believe WMATA is going to help out in terms of absorbing these routes. And we've been given resources to explore a microtransit. It's going to be about $600,000 for a study. We believe that the future of transit, WMATA thinks big, long routes, but we think there's a lot to be said for microtransit routes, which are much smaller, tighter routes that tend to be more neighborhood-based. The Southwest bid and Anacostia bids have started up these microtransit routes, and we think there's a lot of potential in the future for this in other communities as well. Right, next slide. So government operations, when we go to those budget sessions, people always want to starve government ops, but they are the things that help keep our facilities and trains running. So we are going to be able to continue key investments to help pay for our office leases and security and utilities. There's going to be a number of roof repairs and replacements at DC facilities. There's money in terms of our IT, our Octo for cybersecurity threats. And there's also some new resources to help with the design and rollout of DC Gov 2.0, which will be a great new interface for people who want to interact with the district. And then in terms of health and human services, there's $64 million available for additional permanent supportive housing units. And these will be added to the Federal City Shelter site down Judiciary Square. 30 million for FRSP. It's the last dollar support to prevent homelessness. 23 million for renovations at a number of our shelters and increasing the TANF cost of living adjustments. So we know our most vulnerable residents will have supports that they need. Just to highlight some things in terms of Ward 4 that may be of interest. So there's 235 million to modernize and renovate public schools, including LaSalle, Bacchus, Whittier, Truesdale, and Barnard. 18 million will help support Whittier during the swing period while the construction's happening. I mentioned the 25 million for the Shepherd Park Thornton Library. And then we have 13 million for Emory Heights Recreation Center renovations, and then resources to help with erosion issues at Lafayette Pointer Park. And then this is probably a good segue for me to talk more about DDOT questions too. But in terms of transportation and the environment, I think I mentioned the paving resources, 164 million citywide for safety improvements. And we have actually probably closer to 300 million between our high injury corridors, the safe routes to school. We're doing 25 action plans at 25 select schools. We're doing our traffic safety input program. We continue to have sort of unprecedented levels of funding for those programs. We're making new bus priority lanes. Georgia Avenue is going to be coming under construction in the next year or two, 14th Street Northwest and 16th Street Northwest. We're also extending the Met Branch Trail. We have $13 million to add the segment from First Place to Oglethorpe, and then $2 million for planning and design. There's a bike ped trail that's this segment's going to be along Military Road between Oregon Avenue and Beach Drive, but it goes along Joyce too. When it's done, it's going to be amazing. All right, those are the big investments that I just wanted to touch on. I think, did I go over my 10 minutes?
No,
Okay.
you're fine.
All right. But I do want to use the time if people have questions about any of the budget items discussed or DDOT in particular.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate you being here tonight. We'll start with questions from commissioners. Commissioner George.
Yeah, thank you so much, Director Kirschbaum, for your time and for taking on a really tough job at DDOT. It's a crucial job for our city. What DDOT does today helps make our streets safer tomorrow and decides whether our city is able to grow sustainably over the course of the next decade or so. So I had two questions that I wanted to ask. First is, our commission has passed a resolution asking for safety improvements at Sherman Circle, which is in my SMD. If you're able to share any updates on DDOT's thinking on that, that would be great. The second thing was, I actually wanted to share something with you. This is a little art project that a bunch of kids and parents did around the city last year. Each of these stickers is like signed by a young kid who gets around DC on their bike, either by themselves or on their parents' bikes. As things stand right now, it seems like you're on track to preside over a massive retrenchment in the district's commitment to trying to keep these kids safe. There's some chance that while you're DDOT director, one of these kids may be hit in a crash that DDOT could prevent. I know as we speak right now, I think the hearts are on the ride of silence to honor Allie. If that happens, based on what I've seen so far, I'm a little worried that those families aren't going to see you as part of the solution. And I don't want that to be our future. So I'm hoping you might consider finding room for this somewhere at DDOT and maybe, think of the kids on this banner or the kids you saw bike and roll to school day last week, or the folks on the ride of silence next time you're worried about getting yelled at by people who don't like, having to look for bikers before opening their car door, or who complain about having to walk an extra block to get to Sababa. My question is, what is your message for our constituents and our families who get around the city by bike? Is it too dangerous? Should they stop? Does DDOT have the political will to build a safe bike transportation network?
Sure. Thanks for the two questions. Let me do Sherman Circle first. And I'll tell you, we are committed to doing a major revisiting of the design of Sherman Circle. We are currently, as you probably know, working on Grant Circle, and we have a lot of good lessons learned. And I think that's going to help us accelerate the process for Sherman Circle, but we want to finish that first. But you are on our list and we will get there. And we know that there are safety improvements that are needed. And I think we have some really good options in the queue, but we'll do some outreach when we get closer to it, but that is on our list. The district has over 115 miles of bike lanes. This administration alone has spent over $100 million building out our bike network. We have and will continue to build out a bike network. We are right now, we have a list of projects in 24 that we're going to finish. And then we're doing a major strategic bike plan that will help us define our blueprint over the next 5 years. We are going to continue to build safe, inviting, protected bike lanes. I know people didn't like the decision that was made about Connecticut Avenue, but that is not slowing us down from making major investments and continuing to build out the bike network. I often think that we don't do a good enough job talking about the bike lanes that we are doing because all the attention seems to be on the bike lane that we're not doing at this moment. So one of the commitments that I have is to be really deliberate and intentional about building good bike lanes. We have some bike lanes that were built early on that people don't feel safe in. And I would rather spend more money to build better bike lanes than to just throw up a bike lane that has smaller than standard width, that has, trucks that are going by with a flex post in between. And so taking a pause and making sure that we're building them in the best possible way, so it's inviting for bikers of all levels, I stand behind. And so it is not slowing us down. We're going to have a new bike lane on Pennsylvania Avenue West. We have some major corridors that are going in. And I wish I brought a slide to show you what is happening, because I don't think that anything about what we've done and what's in our plans are leading towards somehow a lack of commitment.
Question from Commissioner Morenzuk.
Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm calling all the way in from San Diego, and I do want to say that I bike to my DC government job every day, taking the bike roads. I take my daughter on the back of my bike and my 1-year-old son on the back of my bike every day. So I appreciate what you just said about improvements to the bike infrastructure. I think, of course, we need to look at also building more structurally sound bike lanes, not just sharrows, which were fine, 10, 15 years ago. But I think protected bike lanes is really the way to go. You can look at what has been done on the Kenyon Street, Irving Street bike lane every day. You can see more and more people taking that trip in that protected bike lane. I think it's great. I also just want to say I appreciate you mentioning our resolution on the bike share. I drafted that. I use the bike share pretty much every day when I'm not taking my own personal bike, and I think it's a huge asset to the city. I'm in San Diego right now, and they don't have one that I've seen, and I can't use it, and it's really it feels like I'm lost without it. So I appreciate your mentioning that as well. And I also just want to say, I think improvements in infrastructure I've seen finally on Rock Creek Church Road and Fort Drive and Taylor Street finally is getting some construction done on those sidewalks. And I think that's just a prime area to look at for improvements. I know I have submitted multiple TSIs, and I want that system to work and have more community input. So I just want to say thank you again, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. And I appreciate the positive comparison to San Diego. I'll take it.
Commissioner Abell.
Thank you. I have two things I want to ask about. First, I want to echo what has been said about improved bike infrastructure and improved bike lanes. I use the Capital Bike Share for free as a SNAP beneficiary. I get that for free. And that is a program that is very important that I want to, commend the district for and I want to see improve and expand. But I want, you said, I know some people are not happy about the Connecticut Avenue, but I think that's the wrong way of thinking about it. It's not that we are not seeing the improvements in bike lanes and seeing more programs. It's that we need a director that is more of the mindset that we know where we need to go, which is an infrastructure, a transportation infrastructure that is less reliant on cars. And in order to get to that, we need a director that is brave enough to say, you know what, there are some that are objecting to this, but I am still going to keep going and accomplish this goal, because it's not just about liking bikes. It's about the fact that, our environment is dying, and part of it, and we are all being poisoned. And the biggest contributor to poison and to pollution in the district is car pollution and the exhaust coming from cars, particulate matter coming from cars. So it's really important that we have someone who's brave. And as you come up for confirmation, I'm considering what I will do in my testimony, and I hope you will, present a more brave outlook when it comes to some of these decisions. But my question is actually is about how you coordinate with other agencies on construction. There is the Kennedy Street redevelopment that is happening currently. And I was at the meeting about discussing that. And I was shocked to see that Pepco is doing the feeder thing where they're burying routes. Great. So we're doing that at the same time. There is the whole entire reconstruction that's about to take 4 years. And I asked the question, are we also going to do the lead pipe replacements at the same time? And the reaction I got was a blank stares and people not even understanding what I'm talking about. The route that I'm talking about, the reconstruction you're about to do and you're started on in this back in February, includes many residences that have lead pipes. And so if you're not replacing them, and DC Water is saying that they're going to replace them within the next 5 years, that means the reconstruction you just did, they're going to dig it up again. So this has budget ramifications. This has ramifications being a nuisance. I don't know if you know this about lead pipes, but when you do construction, you shake up the pipes and you're putting lead into people's pipes. So if you're going to dig up all of Kennedy Street over the next 5 years, and then DC Water is going to do it right after, like, I'm just not seeing the coordination happening. So how in the future are you going to coordinate so that we don't have a DC feeder project and then a DDOT project and then followed by DC Water and then DDOT coming back and doing a reconstruction again? So how are we going to avoid these sort of mistakes that cost millions of dollars and then are a nuisance to residents? Just on those things, if you could just talk about that, I would appreciate it.
No, and you're spot on in terms of it's the biggest challenge for us in terms of maintaining our roadways in good repair, because we have not only, you mentioned the Pepco, the DC plug, the undergrounding of the electric lines, and the DC Water lead pipe replacement. Washington Gas also has a major infrastructure project too. And at any given point in time, no matter how great DDOT can make our roadways, we probably have this 8 to 10% that are getting dug up by the utilities. So it's something that it is a priority for me, and I've actually been leaning in on it quite a bit, particularly with DC Water right now. We have been working with DC Water to get them to plan out their next 5 years so that we can time this. Unfortunately, we're dependent on them to give us clear plans. The good news is they don't want to pay for this either. And so we said, look, if you want to reduce your costs, which you do, you've got to let us know when, and we will stagger our time, the timing that we come in. So we're not digging up and then paving and digging up and paving. So Pepco is us. DDOT is partnering with Pepco on the electric line undergrounding. So that we plan well in advance, and we actually do exactly what you asked in terms of we don't pave when we know the utility is coming. And actually for all of them, we do have, that's part of the permit system that allows us to have that transparency. And we do, when we know enough in advance, time and stagger our paving. We're getting a new permit system. We're right now finishing up a lot of the design requirements for it. And the big thing that we are doing is we're deploying our inspectors differently. So DDOT, we process 133,000 permits a year. So this is more than all the DOB and DLCP. I don't think people realize how many public space permits we process. We have a team of 27 inspectors, and we had been sending them out on, geographic base, different reasons. And we realized that we just need to focus them on utilities and the high impact, high cost. So that's been a change recently. And so that we can stay on top of these excavations to make sure that they're sealed up at night the way they're supposed to be, and then they're paved over the way they need to be. And we've also added a new 311 for public space inspection. So if you're walking by and you see that there might be an excavation that wasn't sealed up well, and you can hear sometimes the metal clank, clank. We want people to tell us that quickly so that we can respond quickly. And so the new 311 will get to the public space inspectors, and they have a 24-hour team. So please, when you see excavations that aren't being filled right and the roadway is dangerous or the sidewalk's blocked, use that and let us know.
Commissioner Pinckney.
Yes, hello, everyone. Good evening. Hello, good evening.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. Hi, thank you for the presentation on the budget. I'm going to get back to the budget. I thank you for presenting it. It was presented well. The project I'm working on that's dear to my heart is the library on Kennedy Street. We have been working diligently for a year to make the acquisition of the new library on Kennedy Street something that is possible and that we can see tangibly in our lives. We just found out last week that the money had been reallocated, and then they set aside, instead of the 5 million, 2 million. I see in the presentation from today where really they have gone back to what they originally mean. When I say they, I mean the mayor and the director of the libraries were clear about the library, Thornton Library, which was going to be demolished and done brand new. And they've taken that money back, which means they in effect have caused me, in a sense, to waste my time and the time of the community people who worked for this year. But we participated in hearings, and the persons who were in the ANC and in the community up near that library said, why are you destroying a library that's still pretty much brand new? And they agreed to just renovate it, and therefore they could expend the 5 million to acquire the land necessary here. I'm concerned, and I know you can't do anything about this. You're from DDOT, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But my concern, and then I'll ask my question of you. My concern is that looking at all of the line items for what we're spending money on in this budget from A to Z, including bike lanes and new websites and all of this, and even policing, and even some DDOT transitional ideas you all have, you're throwing money in spaces, and it doesn't show in places that really touch people. Here in Ward 4, especially in the neighborhood that I represent, there's no place for organization. Even if we had a tutoring program, even if the commission wants to have a space to have an event like 3 times a year to bring our communities together, there's no space in our community to do that. no safe space. And crime or public safety cannot just be attacked by throwing police officers and highways that include bikes and all of this, because you're also in a community that where you've taken away a lot of our parking, but you're still including more construction for people who need and want to bring their cars. So Commissioner Abell also rose a good issue, which I've encountered with the rats in my building, is that none of these departments are talking or sitting around the table when major infrastructure work has to happen. And so even, I mean, in your budget for DDOT and in the reconstruction of our community, do you also have a plan to work, or has the money been included to pay for the Department of Buildings and all of the things you need for rat abatement as well? Because it is a fact that in our neighborhood, there are rat colonies up down underground where you all will be going into. Now, when you open that space, they've got to come out. They will go into people's homes or, you know, just out in the street. I don't know. But when you did your budgeting, did you include that as well? And if you didn't, is it too late? I know a budget is a living document. It can be adjusted. But is it too late for you all to come to the table and really meet face to face and hammer out what you're going to do? Because I know I have a lot of seniors in my SMD, and there's seniors and others like Commissioner Cece, and just from one incident, you know, they had to come up with, what was it, $6,000 out of their pocket because they had exposed some gas. And
Commissioner Pigney, I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, is there a question there that we could get to just to make sure that
well,
everyone gets a
I
chance
think
to
I
ask?
asked for a couple of questions. So question number one is, does your budget line items for the construction in our neighborhood include the abatement of the, you know, rodents? And is there space for you all to actually sit and work with those other departments so that we don't have to go, like Commissioner Amon said, go into the ground twice?
Okay, so the rat abatement work through the Department of Health is funded. So I don't know if you mean just sort of in terms of who's doing the work, or if they're actually going to make sure that the entity doing the construction is doing it appropriately. And I think they do more enforcement. So yes, my understanding is that that service is not being cut and is available. And but in terms of excavations, to be clear, you know, DDOT is doing a very small group. So we're working with PEPCO on the undergrounding of the electric lines. All the other utilities are working independently. We do have permits. We do have our public space inspectors that can enforce the permit terms. So if they're leaving things out with trash or not sealing it the way they need to, those are things that we can also enforce. So if you do see these things happening, that's why we added a new 311 to directly pull those requests in so our inspectors can get out there and they have the ability to, you know, penalize with pretty high fines. So we get results, or we can also issue stop work orders. So let us know when you're seeing that.
Okay, well, I'm just saying this. I apologize, but what I have learned in the 2 years I've been in this seat is that each department does its own
Commissioner
thing.
Pigney, I'm
Wait,
sorry,
wait, wait a
we're
minute,
actually running over time, so I'm wondering if
Okay,
you could
but with
give the
respect,
floor to someone else for a moment.
with respect, the previous commissioners said all that they wanted to say, did presentations. I'm not going to be too much longer, sir. I just asked for one more minute of time. Ma'am, you are in a seat that, okay, in the planning of what you're doing, I'm just asking that you consider having the plan for the abatement in hand when you start breaking ground. Because by leaving it and saying, oh, this other Department of Buildings will handle it, that will leave the homeowners out in the cold, because they don't know that there are 3 different departments that handle one thing. And when you have rats in your home, it's a different department from when there's trash outside and there are rats. So it's more than just coming in and doing DDOT's job. It's about, I think, just being mindful of the people who you're working around. That's all. That's all. And
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate you, and I yield back my time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. Director Kirschbaum, I realize that we're over time, but would you have time maybe for 1 or 2 questions from the public? Just briefly. Thank you. So we'll open up the floor to members of the public. We would ask that we prioritize members who live in ANC 4D first. So anyone who lives in the community first, we realize that we may have other outside guests, but we would like to prioritize those who live in the community first. And again, we ask that you keep your comments or questions to under 1 minute. First, I see we have a question online from neighbor Wesley.
Yes, are you able to hear me?
We can hear you,
Yes,
ma'am.
we can.
Okay, great. I don't know if this is it's the correct speaker, but I wanted to talk about traffic safety on Illinois Avenue in Gallatin. Is this appropriate for our speaker?
Director Kirschbaum, would you take a question on that?
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
I live at the corner of Illinois and Gallatin Street Northwest, and it is quite a very serious accident-prone area. And I'm the only person that has a driveway on the front. So since the pandemic, the speeding, even though we have speed bumps, the speed bumps are very, very low. So everybody just speeds, even though there's a light to go through the light and everything. And mostly in the evening, there are a lot of Maryland drivers coming back and forth. What can be done in a case like this? Because it's dangerous for me, backing out of my driveway, very, very dangerous. And I almost got hit the other day. A neighbor helped me. And the children are trying to cross the street to get to the park, right at the corner of Lorenzo Park. So we as neighbors, and I talked to a lot of neighbors before the meeting, they're very, very concerned about their safety. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. And I'm sorry you had that scary experience. And I'm going to just, if you'll indulge me for 3 minutes, 96% of our roadway crashes are caused by human error. So that means the balance are, weather or roadway conditions or vehicle failure, but the vast majority are because people are distracted, they are impaired. And sometimes impaired means, people, they took their allergy medicine and it had, made them drowsy. Or, the amount of people on their cell phones today, it seems like it keeps moving in the wrong direction and getting worse. And we have, it's an uphill battle. Our goal and the tool that we have in our toolkit, well, we have 2, but the big one is in terms of roadway engineering is to slow the traffic down. But we are still not solving the root problem. So we slow it down with speed humps. It seems like you might need some improved visibility if there's people parking right where there's a driveway or an alley. So those are things we can all do to help mitigate the problem. But I just want to share that even with speed humps, even with all of these interventions, what you're seeing, it's just a troubling phenomenon that's happening nationwide in terms of the drivers. So we can take another look in terms of interventions. We have, through enforcement, we do have the traffic cameras. Those do work. There are conditions about, where it makes sense to put them, but we've been seeing great results. And you probably are aware, we had about 470 installed, just finished the installations of those. Those are red light, speeding, stop sign camera. We have oversized vehicle cameras. And then for clear lanes, people that are blocking our priority bus lanes or the bus zones. So that's another key tool we have in the toolkit. And and NPD is stepping up on their enforcement as well. And then we have a fantastic highway safety office that is trying to get at the human behavior piece, because that's the biggest thing that we need to fix. And they're doing so much, particularly targeting newer drivers. People need to get in their car and know that they are driving a 2-ton weapon, and be scared and think about it all the time. And so we need advocacy to help remind people of how much drivers need to slow down. So anyway, I know that's a long-winded answer. I'm glad there's speed humps. If you feel like there's more that we can do, please do put in a traffic safety input. But sometimes people give examples of just crazy reckless driving, and it's hard to have a solution for that.
So now how do I put in the safety input?
Oh,
Because I have 3 very good suggestions that I won't talk about today, but I would love to talk to someone about that.
Sure. And actually, so Cornelius Anderson is in the room. He works with DDOT, and he is your Ward 4 liaison. He would be your
Okay.
best starting point.
I'll put
Wonderful.
you in contact, Zilla, with Cornelius.
And I think we have
Okay.
time for one more question this evening, and it goes to Commissioner Emeritus Zach Israel.
You're so kind, Chair Parati. Thank you for that. Thank you for being here, Director Kirschbaum. So my question is actually focused on traffic safety input program, or I know it's informally now called TSI 2.0. I think it went into effect January 2023. So now we're over 16 months into this. And I really love your honest sort of feedback about what's gone right with that program and what's gone wrong. Where is there room for improvement in really one of the most direct ways that your average DC resident can request directly from DDOT safety fixes on our roadways. And the reason I pose this question is because I was around as a 4D commissioner in the 2 TSI programs ago, and then when they revamped it, and I got a lot of speed humps in my SMD at the time, which was fantastic. And then it seems like this new system, while I do applaud you on some of the equity factors embedded in it, it seems like there are a lot of things routed to this system that really shouldn't be part of the TSI program. Like something that maybe just some new signage on a block would be sufficient, but it gets routed, funneled through the system, and it's one of the 200 locations for the quarter. Whereas it would be better spent if true safety investigation somewhere else would take priority there. And so love your thoughts on that. And and also, is there some informal system for TSIs where ANC commissioners might be able to get priority in terms of their suggestions for locations? How does that work behind the scenes? Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks for your question. And yes, you have some good insights and lots of things that I want to touch on. Okay, I'm going to start with the last point about giving extra prioritization for the ANC requests. So, and I know you were around when we started the program and really looked to the ANCs to make the decisions. It was, I think, resolution based was how we sort of decided where to go. And that actually helped manage the numbers in some ways, but we found when you looked at the distribution of where we were spending our time, it wasn't necessarily aligned with where the biggest safety needs were. We have some really well-organized ANCs, and they were cranking these things out, and they got a lot of attention. And there were other areas that had probably higher risks, but just didn't have the same attention, discipline, a push to get those in. So what we tried to do is use data. Now we use data to determine where we go, and we can ensure that our resources are allocated where they're most needed. And so that has made a big shift in terms of, if you look on the maps, where we're spending our time on the TSIs. It feels bad. I know if you used to have some control and now you don't, I get that. But I also don't know how else. I think that to me, it is the most fair way. And as a public servant, I have to think about how we're allocating resources and using data. And the data includes many things, right? It's roadway conditions and, crash histories, but, proximity to vulnerable road users, near transit. I mean, there's a number of variables that we look at that I think anyone objectively would say, yes, your model makes sense. That is where you should go first. Now, to the point that you made about too many things in the mix, I totally agree. And this is where when we launched TSI 2.0, we said, this is a work in progress. This is an iteration, because I think we need to continue to improve it and learn from some of the mistakes. And one of the mistakes is that we have too many things that come in there. And you gave a perfect example of what if it's just a signage issue, right? It's a new sign. Do I really need a traffic engineer to go out and take a look at it? Probably not. There's a lot of other requests, like visibility, sometimes along the, near a crosswalk or near a curb, people are parking illegally and then you can't see people crossing. Putting up flex posts, it's a pretty simple design. Could we do that without a traffic engineer? Yes. And in fact, we've just have been piloting our maintenance team to do it. So what I'd like to do is to figure out how we can pull out things that are simpler, that we can do sort of on a more mass scale, that don't need the same kind of study and evaluation, because they are contributing to, a very full list of asks. So yes, we have 9,900 intersections in the district. And we probably have TSIs on close to half of them now. So we just got to pull out the easy stuff. And I'm totally with you. We're there. We're going to have a 3.0 launch at some point. So this is just a preview, but it's a great point, and we can continue to refine it.
Director Kirschbaum, so that very good question. That's my next question, Director Kirschbaum. For people who are here tonight with questions, what would be the best way for them to follow up with you with additional questions?
Okay, I can stay till 7:30. I can stay for one or two more, but then please, so Cornelius and we meet every week, okay? Please work through Cornelius, give him your questions. We will get you an answer.
Yeah. Well,
you've got a complicated question that we've been talking about. Trust me, it's not an easy answer. We're not ignoring you.
no, as much as we would love to have the meeting be about DDOT, we have other agenda
Okay.
items that we need to get through tonight, I'm afraid. So, we appreciate you being here, but you'll have to follow up with Director Kirschbaum directly, because we have other stuff on our agenda that we have to get through, I'm afraid. So thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate it. Next up, we have Ms. Barbara Rogers from Councilman Member Janice Lewis George's office. Ms. Rogers.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay, good afternoon, commissioners. Good afternoon, members of the community. I just actually have a couple of updates. I'm going to start with budget updates. Last week, the committee, Councilmember Lewis George chairs, which is the Committee on Facilities and Family Services, approved major investments in facility maintenance, families, and disability programs. We're grateful to see funding restored for the Office of the Ombudsman for Children, which supports families involved with child and family services agencies, and Safe Shores, which supports survivors of child abuse and neglect. The committee also directed $1 million in funding to reduce the work orders in schools and other public buildings, cutting down the time it takes to get repairs made. The chairman's budget will also be finalized soon, and we'll be keeping you updated once it's released and the voting begins. The new thing, and I think we sent out updates to probably every listserv, is the WMATA Better Bus Network proposal. This is a plan that is now open for public comment. The plan greatly reworks DC bus routes, including important routes that serve our Ward 4 residents, such as the E4 and the 63. So we're concerned about several proposals that would negatively impact Ward 4, including bypassing certain neighborhoods and breaking up direct access downtown. So we are charging ANC commissioners, civic association, and community members to submit their comments on the proposed routes. Comments can be submitted at betterbus.wamata.com/share. I'm happy to put that in the chat. So we also encourage you to look at the new routes and see how the proposed would impact you and the routes that you use on a daily basis. Just couple more. Kennedy Street Library, which I am sure Commissioner Pinckney will speak on soon. As she just mentioned, last week, the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs did restore $2 million in funds that were cut last year for the city to purchase the land for the library facility on Kennedy Street. Councilmember Louis George is committed to funding this important project, and we'll have a better sense of our progress as we near the first budget votes that will happen at the end of the month. And then finally, if you do not receive our newsletter that comes out every Friday afternoon, you can go to ward4news.com. You can also receive our newsletter by text on your phone. All you need to do is just text to 202-286-5268. And thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Questions from commissioners for Ms. Rogers? Commissioner Bell.
Ms. Rogers, I want to ask about the budget. One thing that was mentioned in DDOT's is that the mayor is only allocating 12 million for ERAP, which represents a $30 million reduction in ERAP, which is very scary to me. So, and I'm hearing Robert White and the Committee on Housing is only increasing it by 6 million. So we're still short 25 million from the previous year, which is, I'm not being alarmist when I say people are going to become homeless because of this. So I just want to encourage the council member to really push for, I know, there's still the committee of the whole, to push for restoring ERAP to its full funding, because that's how we prevent homelessness. So anything about that, if you could, relay that message, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Definitely will. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Next up, we have Mr. Derek Johnson from the mayor's office. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, can you hear me? Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight. I bring a couple of updates from the mayor's office. I wanted to just first start off by saying May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So asking you all to just check in on your own mental health, because we know that mental health is healthcare. So just FYI, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Likewise, I wanted to note a couple of things going on across the ward. Specifically, I want to highlight for everyone's attention that Ward 4 had a roll-off day scheduled for this Saturday coming up, May 18th at 10 a.m. It was to be held at the Emory Rec. However, this event is going to be rescheduled to June 1st. Saturday, June 1st will be the Ward 4 roll-off day. So don't come this Saturday to Emory Rec. Wait until June 1st. It's going to be still held at the same location. You can bring your bulk trash, your used electronics. You can bring documents to shred. You can bring lithium batteries, but don't come until June 1st between 10 and 4 p.m. Just highlighting that there will be information spread on social media, but I wanted to let you all know first that information. It's going to be at Emory Rec. All right, and that's Madison and Georgia Avenue. Likewise, I wanted to note that coming up May 29th is Senior Fest, and this year's Senior Fest is going to be held at UDC's campus. And so this is a great opportunity for DPR to partner with DACL to show our seniors some love as we start the as we start the summer experience. So if you're a senior and you're interested in attending, you can go to seniorfest.wamata.com seniorfest24.splashthat.com. I'll say that again. That's seniorfest24.splashthat.com. Likewise, I want to turn my attention to the DC Department of Parks and Rec. For any persons with young people in their life, registration for the DPR 2024 summer programs have begun today and yesterday. The registration opened, and so you all can go online and go to DPR's website to register for summer programming. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to stand with the mayor as we announced the Ward 8 hub location. A hub is the new opportunity the mayor has put forth in the community for residents to come walk in and get help from multiple DC agencies, to include MOKERS, DOB, DBH, and the focal point, they're becoming focal points for community engagement. The first one is in Gallery Place, right there, Gallery Place, Chinatown, right next to the Walgreens. The second hub location is in Greater Anacostia, and we're looking to expand to a third location close to Ward 4, Ward 1 on the line near the U Street area. And so these are great opportunities to engage and get services. And so we opened our second location on Monday, not yesterday. I also just want to report some information with regard to public safety from DMPSJ. And so I wanted to give you all some crime statistics that I recently came into. Homicides down across the city, 20%. Assaults with a dangerous weapon down 29%, violent crime as a whole down 25%, all compared to this time last year, year to date. And so overall crime is down 16%. I also want to highlight that tomorrow there's going to be a DCHR hiring fair. It's going to be called Spring into a New Career. It's going to be held at MLK Library. This hiring event will feature on-the-spot opportunities for hiring in public and private sector jobs. If you have not done so, you can go online and register at DCHR, and that's going to be held tomorrow, Thursday, May 16th at MLK Library from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Lastly, I'll end with Happy DC Infrastructure Week. This coming Friday, there will be a DC Infrastructure AI broadband and networking panel that will be held in conjunction with the Department of Employment Services, and that will be held in Northeast Minnesota Avenue, 4058 Minnesota Avenue Northeast. Likewise, well, I guess that's really my last update. Welcome you all to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any quick questions from commissioners?
I have
Commissioner Cornelius.
A couple quick questions. Thank you, Derek, for always coming. One question I have, I've heard from a couple of my constituents recently that their tax bills, their property tax bills have increased substantially, suddenly and without any sort of explanation. And that's very concerning to me because these are residents who have paid off their homes and all of a sudden, they owe this astronomical number in terms of taxes. And I'm wondering if that's a way of, unfortunately, I don't want to say this out loud, pushing those people out so that those homes could be flipped and sold over $1 million. And that's an issue. So that's my one, why is that happening? Who can they contact about this? I've heard from at least 3 or 4 constituents at this point over the past 2 weeks. So again, that's very concerning. My second question, and this is not as important, when it comes to the DPR activities, signing up for those, especially the swimming lessons, et cetera, is there a better system that we can put in place similar to maybe the school lottery process? Because literally I sign in like 15 minutes beforehand. And and then when I get in line, I'm 700 people behind. And by the time I sign in, I like my ability to even sign up my daughter for swimming lessons. And this has happened now for 2+ years, it goes by the wayside. So is there a better system that we can put in place? Because this system that DPR has is not working.
Well, I'll start with the second. That actually is a new system that they have because they found that people had the same issue, and with regard, well, with regard to them not putting all the what they did in the past was have all the slots available on the first day, and then those all got filled, and so they try to stagger it. And so I do know that they changed the system over from last year's, so I can be in touch with Chris Dyer to see what that system looks like as they continue to roll out. I know swimming is coveted, and it's just one of those things that goes very quickly. In fact, they opened the swimming the day before on the 14th, and to give more opportunity. So we can always work to do better. So hopefully I'll be in touch with Chris Dyer and see what we can discuss about that procedure. And then likewise, with regard to the constituent tax bills, if you could be in contact with me directly so that I can talk to each individual, because each individual case is going to be different. There might be a explicit reason why someone's bill is going up. I can't say the system is targeting anyone's home to get them kicked out so that they can have their house flipped. I can't believe that. But what I can say is I can dig into this issue and determine why each individual might have a tax bill that they were given.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate it. Do we have a quarterly report?
Yes, we do. 1 second. Were you able to pull up the attachment? I'll pull it up on my phone and then.
Or while you look at that, we can turn over the floor to Commissioner Pinckney if you're available for an update on the library.
Yes, hi, good evening.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Okay, let me see if you can see me. Can you see me?
I can't see you, but there we are. We can see you now.
You can see me now?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, well, good evening. To make it short and sweet, well, I'm not sure if Mr. Zach Israel is also still on the line. He's on the task force with me. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to all of the community members and other ANC community officers for taking the time over the last year to help with this process of getting a new library. The task is not over. The momentum just has to switch a little bit, and what we need to do has to switch around a little bit. We have the 2 million instead of the 5 million right now, but again, they go to the end of the month, and that could change. You never know. Next week is another meeting of the library board and myself. I will send a report to the board to reemphasize the importance of the library to our community. So the only report I have is it's not over because the $5 million price tag is not there. You still have the 2 million, and we're just going to move forward. May I yield some time to Mr. Israel? Do you have anything to say? I don't know if you all can hear.
He might have logged off, Commissioner.
No, nothing else
Oh.
to add, Commissioner Pinckney. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so that's it, unless there's anybody with any questions, or if anyone would like to join the library task force, you can contact me directly at 4D01@anc.dc.gov.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And next up, going a little bit out of order, we're going back to our treasurer's report, which we have now. So Treasurer Corniotis, can you tell us about our finances? And Commissioner George is going to share the quarterly report with the public. You're muted, Commissioner.
Yeah, sorry. Good evening, everyone. The beginning balance for quarter Q2 of fiscal year 2024 was $16,353.15. We wrote checks for primarily communication reimbursement or our Zoom account, which totaled $965.84. So our ending balance is currently $15,387.31. Apart from that, we've opened up our grants application process for those interested. And I will send out the link to those who I've heard from regarding grants. And then as we've said previously, the grant application is currently on our 4D website as well.
Thank you, Treasurer. Questions from any commissioners about the budget or finances? No. Thank you. Next up, we've got old business. Commissioner Bell, I think you're on the agenda for a lead-free DC resolution. Do you have a resolution for us to review or sign? Commissioner Bell?
About lead-free
lead-free
DC?
DC?
Yeah, I'm still working on the
Okay.
draft, and I will have it soon. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have a BZA application number 20823A for 5433 Georgia Avenue. Are the applicants present or online tonight? I believe they were planning to make an online presentation.
Hi, Commissioner. This is Marty Sullivan.
How do you do? Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you. I'm zoning counsel for the applicant, and the applicant should be here as well. And the architect, Anthony Pizzo, is here as well.
And does
So
one of you have a presentation that you'd like us to share?
Yeah, Anthony, did you want to do it, or I can share if you?
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Marty. Share.
Okay, sure, I can share. So I'm going to present. So this is a modification. It's a BZA modification of significance. A couple years ago, 20823 BZA 20823 granted lot occupancy relief for the first floor of this building. It's a 5-story, 50-foot high mixed-use building at 5427 Georgia Avenue. It's at the top, Georgia, Kennedy, and Illinois. And also parking relief was granted. And so it's a new owner, a new architect, and coming back asking for modification of significance for penthouse setback. And we'll show you where that is on the plans. DOB also said we needed to go back for modification because we were changing the first floor use. It was mixed use on the first floor. It was a residential unit and commercial, and now it's all commercial. We didn't really think that necessitated a modification from the board, but we were here anyway for the penthouse relief. That actually removed the lot occupancy relief, because the lot occupancy relief was only for the first floor because it was a residential unit. Because it's a commercial unit, there's no lot occupancy limit to that. But let me let me share the screen here. Yeah. Okay, I'll start with the old plans. And Anthony, do you want to go through this and just tell me where to? We basically did the old roof plan, couple elevations, and then the new plans after that.
Yeah. So this was what we have here is the original site plan that was submitted to the BZA. So you can see, go back one. There we go. There's part of it is habitable penthouse. You can see what they're calling as 10 foot in height. That's your habitable portion of the penthouse that was set back 10 feet from the property line. And then they had this mechanical penthouse that kind of stretched across to connect those two habitable portions of the penthouse, and they set that back 8 feet. But after really diving into the building, locating the building core, what they weren't showing here is that there's actually a stair elevator. I'm sorry, an elevator overrun that pops up right where it says roof at stairwell, which would have to set back as well. So that was something they omitted. And then just where they're calling mechanical penthouse, just really wasn't enough space for your condensers, your generators, your rooftop units, and all the necessary equipment that you need up there on the roof. I don't know if I'm missing anything else, Marty.
Well, did you mention the trellis issue?
Right.
You want me to mention that?
Yeah, go ahead. You can talk through that.
Yeah, so they had the original plan included a trellis 50 feet high here on the bottom. And what that did was it negated the need for setback relief for this penthouse and potentially this penthouse, because it made this a closed court. But we didn't think it was a good design feature. And also, Anthony can probably say he's not sure how to actually make that work. What's the distance here, Anthony? It's 40 feet.
You're 42 feet. 40. It's a clear span of 42 feet, and then you're up basically 5 stories. I don't even know how you would, properly construct something like that. So
yeah, it's basically,
it was kind of
it was
a bogus.
So yeah. But removing that trellis then requires that we ask for relief for this penthouse, because the setback requirement for is any side building wall that's not located on a property line. So this is a side building wall, even though it's set in from the property. And this here on the north is a side building wall, even though in the in the case of the new design, which I'll get to somehow, it is 31 feet. So this wall's 31 feet away from Kennedy, and this wall's 15 feet away from the property to the south. And that's if we met the setback, 1-1 setback, we couldn't do any of this because there's a setback on each side. We also are asking for relief from the setback from these interior walls. Now, we don't think these are side building walls, but we haven't gotten a clear answer yet from DOB whether or not a setback is required from these inward facing east-west walls. If we need a setback here, it basically eliminates the habitable penthouse and the IZ contribution that comes with that. Because we have a 10-foot setback here on Georgia, we have a 10-foot setback plus on Kennedy, and we have the 10-foot setback on Illinois. So now we're just talking about setbacks in between our two interior walls on this side. We do agree that this definitely needs relief because it's a side building wall. We don't think this is a side building wall. But as of now, we're asking for relief for that. Do you want to talk about the design at all, Anthony? Design changes or?
Yeah, I mean, we can just quickly.
This was not why it came back, but there were, Anthony made some design changes.
Yeah, there were some design tweaks we made to the facade. I mean, originally they had this sort of brick base, again, sort of encapsulating your what's going to be retail space. Now it's going to be all retail and office space, except for a small residential lobby off of Illinois. So we sort of retain that brick base. You can kind of see there in that red material. A lot of big glass, big storefront windows. The idea is we want to kind of activate that street level there on the facade. And then basically above that plane, you have 3 stories of residential there, platted in, like a fiber cement type of siding material, with, again, large, big openings, a lot of eyes on the street. And then you have this sort of gray, your bay projection is the sort of gray featured element that also has balconies attached to it. And then that piece on the top there that's kind of ghosted out that's the penthouse that's set back 10 feet beyond. And this is the facade on Kennedy Street. So again, that brick base carries through this facade here. Part of it would be office and part of it would be retail. And then that same language continues above. And then all the way in the back, again, ghosted out, is that lane that we're discussing at the top there that we need relief on for the penthouse. And then the view on Illinois. So this is your, again, you can kind of see at the bottom left there, that's the lobby entrance. And then to the right of that is the office. And basically it's a very similar facade to what you have on Georgia.
Okay, I think that's it for us. Anybody has any questions?
Thanks to you both. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Bell.
Thank you. I don't really have many questions about the actual relief you're asking for. It seems reasonable. My question is about what happens to the property while you're starting construction, while you're so I just wanted to, has the demolition started? Sorry, I haven't been to the area in a second. Has demolition started on what is existing there right now?
No, demolition hasn't started yet. No.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about what will happen immediately after demolition? Is that area going to be fenced off? I'm just thinking about safety, public safety issues. That area, yeah. So can you just tell me about what's like the transition between, demolition and construction starting is my question. And then my other question is about 5410, which is 5410 Illinois Avenue, which is, I believe, a home that is going to continue to exist, and you don't directly affect it, but I'm just, we've had recent constructions and property that is adjacent being damaged and things like that. Can you just talk a little bit about how you're mitigating things like that and that property that is behind that? And just, I want to think about what happens while you're doing construction more than what happens after you're done. Can you just talk a little bit about, how you're considering the safety of the neighborhood and things like that while construction is happening and as you begin?
Yeah, and I think Emre, the owner, might be better because he's also the contractor. These are kind of questions more for the construction team than the architects. Emre, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, but my camera is not working, so I'm not going to able to open my camera, but I can tell you what's going to be next. So once we have the demo, once we are ready for the demolition of the building, we're first gonna put the fences, safety fences, and close the sites. And there's gonna be, of course, TCP permits with a proper traffic control plan and construction site entrance. Then once we demolish, of course, there's gonna be sediment and erosion control precautions on the job site. After we hold the concrete and the brick and what we demolish, we're gonna close the sites until we get the full permit and we are ready for the construction.
Quick follow-up. So 1 second, actually, about there's one other thing I wanted to ask, but oh yeah. So with the fencing, one thing I've noticed with fencing, especially near where we have lots of liquor stores and there's a lot of people hanging out, is that trash accumulates behind the fence on your property. So I was just going to lightly suggest that you have, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I'm not even sure what it's called, but it's not just have fences, but like have there's a backing you can put on it so that what happens is people will see some trash behind the fence and then we'll continue to throw trash. But if you have visibility fencing blocking that, I just wanted to suggest having some sort of blocking visibility as well, so that we don't have this sort of pattern of people see trash on the fence and then continue to throw more trash over the fence. Just keep that in mind. But thank you.
Yes, sir. We have couple ongoing projects in Northwest and Southeast DC. When I say fences, I mean fences with the blinds. We cover the fences with the blinds so that it's not visible from the outside of the job site. Plus, we keep big dumpsters on the job site, which regularly we call for the hauling company to replace them with the empty ones. And as I said, we are going to hold the materials and the trash and garbage, everything from the job sites to, proper locations.
Any other questions from commissioners? No? Thank you so much. Appreciate your presence here tonight. Next up, we have another BZA application. This is BZA application 21159 for 622 Jefferson Street. Commissioner Abell, do you know if the applicants are here tonight?
I don't believe so.
Is anyone from that address present online? Commissioner Abell, would you like to present on their behalf then?
Don't think I can. All right. This is this is a home that they're trying to do construction on the front porch. It's an existing property, 2-story dwelling. The owner is seeking relief from the rooftop and upper floor elements, requirements of subtitles here. I don't see any issues with the project. As some have said, I'm not even sure why we need to comment on it. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from any commissioners on 622 Jefferson Avenue? Okay, we'll move on. Next up, we have a resolution by Commissioner George about traffic safety on Allison Street.
That's right. For those who were at our meeting last month, you'll know that DDOT came and presented about a proposal they released in April to make a change to make the intersection at Kansas, Allison, and 8th Street more safe. What they said was they have this initial proposal right now, which is in the short term to convert Allison Street Northwest to be one-way westbound between that intersection and Georgia Avenue. And they also noted that, and have reinforced us over email, that over the course of the coming months, they intend to put forward broader plans about traffic safety at that intersection that would include bumping out curbs and shortening crosswalks to try and make it safer for pedestrians to cross there. It's across the street from a school. So we have a resolution, which I am happy to pull up, that supports the proposal from DDOT, but also provides a little additional guidance for what would be helpful for the community to see here. So, we note the safety challenges that exist at this intersection, which is kind of complicated and very dicey. We reiterate that even after the changes to Allison Street, there would be a number of significant safety challenges remaining, which I think DDOT acknowledges. And we support the proposal while also encouraging DDOT to move quickly to design the other safety improvements. Reminds them not to just disengage from this process after this one smaller change. Asks DDOT to consider hardening measures, so like installing flex posts, for example, that would make it clear that this is a one-way street to try and avoid mistakes. And then also asks DDOT to consider making that change only to the block between 8th and 9th Street rather than all the way to Georgia Avenue, to kind of minimize the effect on residents and make it possible to cross Georgia Avenue and Allison Street coming eastbound. And we had also passed a resolution about this intersection last year, and we kind of reiterated our request to DDOT that they consider some of the other recommendations in that resolution. Just very quickly, I know we have gotten questions about community engagement on this one. DDOT came and presented at our last meeting, and we're discussing it again here. I dropped off flyers at all the doors in 4D that would be affected. Also kind of put it in a newsletter that I send out periodically. And DDOT has, some of its own publication efforts. So we've received a little bit of feedback back from residents. I think among 4D residents, I've heard from 4, I believe. two who wholeheartedly support the proposal. One who was concerned that it might add more speeding on Allison Street and asked for speed bumps on Allison Street. Fortunately, there is already a speed bump on the 800 block of Allison Street, but we can request another one on the 900 block if speeding is a problem there. And then one resident who, with some residents of 4C, sent a letter raising, they don't think that this will make things less safe, but they have other preferred redesigns of that Kansas Avenue 8th and Allison Street intersection that they would like to see. And so they're kind of frustrated that those designs are not happening. But that's kind of the sum of the outreach and input that we've gotten. The deadline to give DDOT feedback for this is in a few days.
Thank you, Commissioner. Questions or comments from commissioners? Hearing none, we will move on. The floor will now be open to the public. So members of the public who wish to speak can ask questions of us, of any of the government officials who are here tonight. They are able to comment on any of the items on the agenda or raise any questions that are not on the agenda. If you are here present, we ask that you just use the microphone so that people who are online can hear you, and we will also call people online. I see a question from Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't find the hand signal before when I wanted to raise it. We were hoping for a vote of support tonight. I didn't know if the commission had that in mind tonight or not. Our decision on this is coming up, or the hearing is coming up next week already.
Yes, we will vote. We always wait until the public has a chance to comment in case there are any things that we
Okay.
haven't thought about. So we'll vote on it after the open forum here.
Okay, also, if I could ask one more question, 622 Jefferson is on the agenda. Was that, that's my case, but I didn't know about that. Is that off the agenda, or is that, and I think we have
Nope.
time, by the way.
No, it is. This was the construction of a porch, I believe. Is that correct?
Right, it was architectural element relief, I believe. And
That's right.
maybe the architect was handling on his own, so maybe they didn't need me here, but I didn't know if you were doing that tonight or not.
We were planning to vote on that tonight, but I don't think there were any objections from any commissioners on relief.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks.
Sure. Other questions or comments from members of the community? Yes, sir, please.
This is on.
Yes, sir.
My name is Sam Saunders. I live on Ingraham Street Northwest, and I would like to find out whether we could actually meet with the police department in our community, just to have a walkthrough, and maybe yourself. I would love to have you come through our neighborhood, because you were the commissioner, Mr. Johnson was talking about how the crime is down, but we don't see that in our neighborhood at all. We've had carjacking. We've had a couple of cold stolen cars, and we have a lot of activity in our alleys. And that's one of the things. I don't know if we could set that up with you and the police department, have them come through our neighborhood and meet with us in the neighborhood. We have to set an appointment up so I can let the neighbors know. But I would love to have the police department and yourself come out to our neighborhood between like Hamilton and Ingraham Street, and some of the neighbors up there. And also we have a lot of problems with rats in our neighborhood. It's getting really, really bad. I mean, I have a entrance in the basement, and I can see the rats running across it. It wasn't like that. And it just recently really just exploded in our neighborhood. And I have a good reason why, and I could, share that with you at some point. And the lady that was on the end was talking about the bike lanes and things. What about the scooters? I mean, there's so many. I mean, every day I almost hit a scooter. I mean, there are no tags on it. If it hits me and drives off, how do we identify that? The city, is there anything, what can they do about the scooters? I mean, it's just so many, there's no regulation. They ride on the bike, they ride on the sidewalk, they cut in front of you. And every day I almost hit somebody because they come up on the right side, on the blind side of you. And it's just really just awful how the scooters are. And there's just, there's a few things like the cable. There's a cable line that they started to work on, and it's been there for 10 months, hanging halfway down the block. And it's just a matter of time where somebody parks and with a mirror and rip the mirror off up there. And I don't want to take, have I been over 2 minutes?
So you're good, Mr. Sanders.
And then I do want to also comment about the taxes. Our taxes, we look at our tax bill and it's just shot up for no reason. And that's, and I'm a senior and I'm like, how does this keep going up and up? Even with the senior discount, it's like, I can't imagine it's going up like that. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders, for joining us tonight. So it's good to see you again. I don't know if you recall, but I live on the next block away from you, so I can relate to both the crime and the rats issue. I will say, just so you know, our police sector has a public meeting every month, and so I can send you the information for that to go to that. And so that's something that you might be interested in attending. I can also put you in touch with our police community outreach person in the police department we can talk to about getting them to come out here and talk about some issues.
4 or 5 days ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and
There's been 3 or 4 cars that's been stolen in the neighborhood recently.
there's also a senior meeting, I believe, the second Thursday of the month at MPD in Ward 4. The second Thursday at either 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., but either I will get you that information as well.
All right, thank you.
Next up, we have a question from Uptown Main Street. While they're thinking about the question, we have one from a gentleman here.
My name is Maurice Brooks. I've been living in this neighborhood in the unit block, Hamilton Street, since November 9th, 1984. I've seen the transition and everything in the neighborhood, but one of my biggest concerns are the same as Sam. Sam's my neighbor. Is the traffic on Hamilton Street, unit block. The big concern is we have an administration downtown. I'm gonna make this quick. You want to tax me on the way to my SUV, but yet I have dump trucks coming up my street. I have school buses I tolerate, but I cannot tolerate Greyhounds. I cannot tolerate dump trucks. And since Walmart is coming to it's 42 feet is a restriction in DC. 53-foot trucks come up the street. And now that Fort Totten's open, every trash truck and every commercial trash truck. So it should be some way to address it. You put a speed bump out there, but I see it's not really helping because it's so low, they just shoot off of it. I can remember, and I'm going to wrap it up, but there's some concerns with the traffic and the activity in the area. Yeah, I raised 4 kids in this city. I had 5 cars stolen on Hamilton Street, but that's a whole another era. But everybody addresses all this other stuff going on in the city. I've seen the population go from 480,000 to what they alleged it is now over 700,000. I've seen it go from no tax base to a hell of a tax base and everybody coming in. Yet all of a sudden there's no money and my taxes have quadrupled. So you see what I'm doing? Yeah, my value has too. More than quadrupled, but I'm just saying it doesn't add up with the funding and everything else. And I know I worked 47 years. I recently retired 2 years ago. And when you do the math on making this place hospitable, the dream that they sell you, when you retire in DC, you can retire here, you can do this and you can do that. I'm gonna tell you, and I think all of us can, over a certain age, can speak to it. Don't believe it. Get in. These people are getting in, getting out, and getting their money. That's all I had to say on it.
And so just if I can ask you about the traffic question. So do you mean generally the traffic issue or specifically your block?
I don't have concerns with the mornings because people are trying to get to work. I was out there with the rat race too. I know it. I don't have concerns about the evenings because people are getting home. Because Hamilton Street is one way. It used to be east and west. I remember the day it got changed and nobody told us. Okay. I remember when they put up the Ward 4 signs and nobody told us. But we had an ANC commissioner who was also a Mason. He also was connecting. He could get things done. Okay. That's all I'm going to say. It's a different era. And I think we know what his name is. But during the day, and Sam can speak to this, when your house shakes because it's a DC trash truck or a private trash truck or a Greyhound coming from Silver Spring going downtown and he decides to come up through here, or Metro is not a big offender. Private bus companies are big offenders. We're getting ready to go into this thing with everything's going to be shut down to the north on the red line. It's coming because those private buses, those contractors, so from June 1st to August 31st, they're coming up the street. At a time when I moved there and into the 90s, 4D had officers in the alley down by New Hampshire and at the other end because you couldn't make the left turn. But it was very profitable. And they caught a lot of criminals. But I know in today's policing, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And just like we probably need to address ours to the fourth D, whoever the sector supervisor is and all of that, because we need some attention because it's starting to flow over again. It's starting to flow. There's activity in the alleys and all of that. It's starting to flow. Oh yeah, we appreciate the new street lights that they didn't tell us about, and it's thankful that they did turn them up. So, that's a communication piece. Now, maybe I missed that. But, I mean, I've seen the transition. It's just one lady that already left, but it was on my street, 4 of us have been there over 30-some years. The rest of the old money is, as you say, transition and died off. I mean, that's all I have to say. But I've seen the change. I remember when Rudolph was in elementary school. I remember when Keene was in elementary school. And that Thornton Library, why are we spending all that money up there again? Oh, Bowser lives up in that end of 4. But Bowser originally lived down by LaSalle. But that's not a problem. And we can't get a library on Kennedy Street? Come on. Why did Roosevelt, Coolidge, and McFarland be the last schools to be remodeled? We used to be #1 for car thefts up here because we had the variety. You go to Ward 4 and steal a car. You don't go to Ward 3. You don't go over on 3 on the other side of the park, because unless you want a BMW or a Toyota or a Subaru, you come over here, you got variety. I mean, that's the way it worked. Times have changed and everything else, but with all the development and everything that's going on now, Sam's absolutely right. The rats came from Fort Totten. They're coming from all these projects. I can give you stories on Kennedy Street, both parts.
Thank you,
And all
sir.
the stuff going on with that, but it's
And one thing on the traffic issues, this is not something that I know a lot about. Maybe you know more about it than I do, but I know that the city is supposed to have a plan for where commercial vehicles are and are not allowed to go. That's supposed to tell them not to be on resident, like channel them off residential streets. I think it's called the freight plan. So that might be something to look into, to just make sure that the freight plan.
and not to cut you off, with all due
it's-
respect. I'm gonna put it nice and short, and I'm gonna be professional. Best plan, if you want to keep these trucks from coming up and down our streets, it's called something that you put up down here on Missouri Avenue that is so profitable, and it's called a ticket. It's called a camera. And I guarantee you, in the next 60 to 90 days, you will generate a substantial amount of money.
They do have commercially targeted cameras.
Yeah, you had one on Taylor
Like
Street.
certain
Good.
weight limits, certain stuff.
Yeah.
I
You
used
need
to live one
to
right
do
with-
it. I raised my kids, DC public schools, DC college access, everybody out of school and everything, but I'm just saying. There's no incentive for, this is a dream, it's a hell of a dream we're selling here. But to believe that you're gonna retire here and be comfortable and live on a pension.
Oh, thank you, sir.
and that's
Appreciate it.
That's without a mortgage.
Thank you. Uptown Main Street, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we wanted to make an announcement because we have some events coming up, free events in June. We now have once a month Wednesday jazz at the 700 block of Kennedy Street. And the next jazz concert is on Wednesday, June 12th at 7 p.m. And that same week, we have movie night. So movie night is back with Trolls World Tour and also a phone party. Very popular phone party. Those of you who have been out in previous years, that is going to start at 6 p.m. So we'll have popcorn, we'll have the movie, we'll have the phone party, we'll have other fun things, and then the big projection. And all of that is free on a Friday. Hopefully it will not rain. So that's on June 14th. And we have other events planned for the summer, so stay tuned. If I could quickly chime in, of course, we're also in support of the library. We've been advocating as well with that committee. So that you commissioners in the ANC know that we support all the plans that you've put out. And we're also disappointed, but we're still hopeful. We do need the library, and not only for residents, small business owners also need a library. So just want to chime in with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a question, ma'am? Yeah, please.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Frederick. I live on Illinois Avenue. I had some concerns similar to the gentleman's, two gentlemen who spoke earlier. One about the bicycles and the scooters and all of that. And I do seriously think that the city council and the mayor need to consider penalties for those people who are doing. Everybody on the street has rules and regulations except for the cyclists, and they're accommodating them more than they are the car drivers. Like the gentleman said, they ride in and out of your car, in between the cars as you're going up avenues and streets and so forth. They don't stop at any stop signs or stop lights. They're on the street, on the sidewalk, in front of people who are walking. And I think that's atrocious. You try to do all of this to accommodate bikes. And I'm all for bikes. I grew up riding a bike on Rock Creek Park, and we used to ride all the way to Rockville without a problem. Now everybody wants to be on a bike. This is not Oregon. It's not Portland, Oregon. It's not Seattle, Washington, where they are built for bikes. So I think that those people on bicycles need to be pulled to task, because we had an accident right there at Illinois and Gallatin a few weeks ago. And the cyclist, the 4 cars had stopped at the 4-way stop sign, but the cyclist figured he could just keep on going. And he sideswiped somebody's car that was parked. And that person's car that was parked was damaged, but there was no penalty for him because he's gone about his business. He doesn't have to have a helmet. He doesn't have to have insurance, no ID, no tags or anything. I also have an issue with the cameras in the city. That's all well and good. However, I do have concerns because I know some of my neighbors have said that they've gotten, within like a month span, $400 and $500 worth of tickets just from stopping at a 4-way stop sign. We met a few years ago with the lady who was the director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, and she tried to explain to us how we are supposed to stop at a stop sign. Right there at Kansas Avenue and Buchanan.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. They had enough, they earned enough money on that one little camera to buy a house on them.
Yeah.
And one of our neighbors even put up a sign on the corner next to Haynes School of how much money and revenue that brought in. I'm all for revenue for the city. That's great. If you're doing, if I can see where you're going with it. So I think that they.
Maryland drivers.
Pardon?
Maryland drivers don't have to pay, neither do Virginia.
No, and I think that's an issue too with me, because looking at statistics, how much money that the mayor puts in her newsletter every month about how much money Virginia and Maryland people owe us. And there used to be a reciprocity process with DC and Maryland and Virginia. And I mean, it's millions of dollars, and they have not done a damn thing about trying to get that money from Maryland, from Virginia or Maryland to accommodate us. They're not fixing up our streets fast enough with the money they're getting from the residents. I've gotten some tickets that it's easier to go ahead and pay the ticket. And I think that's by design, because they want you to set up appointment to come down for adjudication. Everything is online. I'm a senior, I'm 75 years old. I don't want to go online all the time. A lot of people don't want to go online all the time, even with the Parks and Rec registration for the pool and all of that, because it's all set up to get you depressed, angry, and say, well, forget it, I don't want to do it. You know, if I want to come and adjudicate a ticket, they make it very difficult. I'm a senior, I'm on fixed income. I gave 42 years for the district government working in DC personnel. And I don't think I need to be paying all of that money for a ticket that I've just stopped at the stop sign. Ain't nobody, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, ain't nobody out there but me. Why do I have to sit there a minute and then proceed? And I've had cameras, I have issues with the camera tickets because they said, the lady told me, oh, well, we didn't see your brake lights. It's the daytime. You don't see it anyway. You know, not unless you're sitting right behind it. And on those tickets that they send you, those the information through the mail, you can't see it, you can't determine why you want me to do this. Because there's no evidence to me to show that I went through the stop sign. I didn't go through it. I stopped. Wasn't nobody there. I proceeded. Also, with as far as the rodent situation is concerned, we've been complaining about that for years right there on Illinois Avenue because of the construction. And that's primarily the reason why we do have such an upheaval in rodents. When I was young and coming up, the city had money. I don't know where they got it because they have less now, that less then in the 50s and 60s than they do now, where they cleaned out our sewers.
Yeah.
They sprayed our trees and so forth. We got more allergies and airborne things going around. It's not only cars creating all of this stuff, but they need to come up with another way to accommodate people who live in the city, who have all these beautiful trees. They don't spray them. They don't clean out the sewers anymore. You see those big things on the sewers, so the water can't go through, or the water will back up and, so it won't flood. But I think that's something that they need to do. And also with all the construction, that is one of the reasons why we have so many rodents. They've been digging in that hole over there at Truesdale for I don't know how long. And the rodents, the cats are even scared of the rodents. And the dogs are even scared of the rodents. So I think that's an issue. Our businesses on Georgia Avenue, we want businesses, but the daggone rent is so high, people can't afford to stay there. So I think the city needs to look at that too. And we don't want to go downtown on the subway. We don't want to ride. I'm not riding a bike to the Capital One Center. So you need to accommodate everybody that lives in the city, not only the younger people who want to go out and happy hour and dinner and theater and all of that, but all of us who have paid our dues. Think about us.
Thank you, ma'am. We have time maybe for one more public comment before we have to wrap up tonight. Yes, sir.
How you guys doing? I'm Brian Weaver from Petworth and Uptown Main Street. Kennedy Jazz Project is happening again this summer. On June 12th, we're going to have a band that's going to be outside of Show every day Sunday. It's free to anyone in the public. We had one last week. It was a great success. Please come out and support the local businesses that are doing the live jazz. And then also on June 14th, we're going to have a movie night in the parking lot of Horton's funeral home. And if any of you have been to any of the events, it's great. It's an awesome community event. Really welcome, try to get families and stuff out there. There's games, normally like a foam party, stuff like that, dancing. So bring your families out.
They had the best fries last year.
We did.
Yeah,
I can't promise what the food's going to be on the 14th, but we'll normally come up with something. And a lot of the businesses really lean into it and make great donations. Every day Sunday always gives away free ice cream. So just show up for the free ice cream at least. Kennedy Street, the Horton's funeral home, where the parking lot is.
The thing I say about that is, first thing I think about Kennedy Street,
But how do we? Sure. But how do we change it? I mean, the only way that we change it is if we take back the community.
But I don't want to commit myself to a crowd of people and if there's a shootout.
This is mostly, these are normal, well, and there's always an MPD presence. We're talking about families with little kids that are out in that vicinity there.
I can attest for this specifically, the June 14th event very quickly that I brought my then 1.5-year-old daughter there and a few of my friends were also there with their young children and it was a very good time. I can just say that for.
Come on out. They're a great time and both of these are free events, free to anyone in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
No problem.
One last quick comment. Yes.
So I really just had a question, but really quickly, I'm going to comment. I believe I agree with, and I'll attend the Jazz Festival. I heard it last weekend, but I didn't attend. I do frequent those places as well. But I would like to say that I agree with him, and I would like for everyone to have the type of mind frame that, and I understand your position, but have the type of mind frame that if we include everybody in the community, including those people that might scare you at sometimes, that we might become a better community. I also had a question about the grant. I'm a grantee from last year, referred by Eric. And we did if you guys remember, the Fall Fun Festival last year in the parking lot across from Every Given Sunday. And we partnered as well to accomplish that. I had a question about the grant because it doesn't tell me some logistics. So I would like to know those logistics. But I also would like to announce also, which I have, so I recently met my ANC the commissioner, that I've adopted the blocks, and one of them is a hard one, but we're going to work it out. I've adopted the blocks of in between 600 and 700 and Kennedy Street, and in between the 6 and 7 of Longfellow Street. Life Success Center has adopted those blocks. I do frequent the neighborhood. I came from the neighborhood. I'm 41 years old. I was born and raised in this neighborhood. I know some of the guys who may be considered a problem, and then I know some of the guys who may look like they might be a problem, who are not a problem. So I would like to say that I do come with a bit of an experience, and I believe that some people look up to me in the neighborhood. So far as communities event, I've had a successful event. I've been to some of these successful events, and with the presence of MPD, I don't think that safety is usually an issue. Of course, we can account for some things that might come in any given day, but at the same time, with us being a community, accepting all in the community, including some people in the community, that'll give us an outlet and we have better outcomes. And I stand in a position as a young person that I can say that I can communicate with some of these young people in these neighborhoods. So I hope that we can partner again this year, and I look forward to more information about that grant information.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your work in our community. And if you like, you might want to follow up with Treasurer Corniotis, who's been managing the grant process, and she can give you some more information. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Next, we have to vote on a couple of items. Let's start with the quarterly report as presented by Commissioner Corniotis. I move to approve the quarterly report. Can I have a second?
Second.
Commissioners, when I call your name, please just say aye if you approve the quarterly report. Commissioner Pinckney. Commissioner Abell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli is not here. Commissioner Corniotis.
Aye.
Commissioner Morensic.
Aye.
Commissioner George.
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. The quarterly report is approved. Next up, we have a resolution NOI 24-108-TESD as presented by Commissioner George about safety on Allison Street. I move to adopt the resolution. Can I have a second?
Second.
Commissioners, when I call your name, please say aye if you approve. Is Commissioner Pinckney still here? No. Commissioner Abell.
Aye.
Commissioner Pinckney's not here. Commissioner Bell. Commissioner Lucarelli is not here. Commissioner Corniotis.
Aye.
Commissioner Morensic.
Aye.
Commissioner George.
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. The motion carries. The resolution is approved. Next up, we have BZA application 20823. This is for relief for the construction of the setback for the penthouse on Georgia Avenue and the conversion of the lower level to all commercial space. I move to approve the request. Can I have a second?
Second.
Commissioners, when I call your name, please say aye if you approve. Commissioner Pinckney is not here. Commissioner Abell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli is not here. Commissioner Corniotis.
Aye.
Commissioner Morensic.
Aye.
Commissioner George.
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. The resolution carries. The request is approved or endorsed. Next up, we have a BZA application 21159. This is for relief for the construction of a porch or the repair of a porch at 622 Jefferson Street. I move to approve the request. Can I have a second?
Second.
Commissioners, when I call your name, you know the drill. Commissioner Pinckney is not here. Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli is not here. Commissioner Corniotis.
Aye.
Commissioner Morensic.
Aye.
Commissioner George.
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Motion carries. Request is approved. Is there any other business before the commission this evening? Hearing none, the commission is adjourned until next month. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. It's only 6:30 over here in San Diego.
Enjoy your evening, Stephen.
Oh, 5:30. It's not even 6:30. Have a good night, everyone.